All right, good evening, everyone. This is Joe Henches with Beyond the Chart. Today is Tuesday, March 25th, 2014. And this is the technical analysis of the stock market today. The Dow Industrials today were up 91.21 points, a little bit higher at the peak during the day, but we had an up day. I'm not sure that the advances declined. I glanced at it, I didn't get the final numbers, but it seemed like the number of advancing stocks versus declining stocks was like 13 to 11. It wasn't super strong. I remember thinking to myself for a Dow that was up 100 at the time. So I have to look at what the final numbers are. So right now I have no change in the scenario that I've carved out here a few days ago at the end of on the weekend. You know, where we talked about this wave 1 down, wave 2 back, wave 1 here, minor wave 1, minor wave 2 pull back, and then potentially looking at a third wave to here. Now, if this point here is taken out, then this is not a 2 anymore. Then it potentially still is. So we're constantly adjusting and looking at what we think is the best scenario given what the market is showing and telling us at the moment. Here's a trend line in here also that looks a little vulnerable given the way it's been hugging in here with the lows bouncing right off the trend line. So it'll be interesting to see and watch this as we go forward the next couple of days. The S&P had an inside day. The trading range today was inside the high and low of yesterday. So a little bit of a sideways move on the S&P. The NASDAQ and the Russell 2000 were two of the weakest over the last, especially yesterday. And of course, we had this big reversal bar on Friday that I had mentioned on the weekend, and it looked kind of negative, and sure enough, we got the fall through, and it broke through this potential support in here, kind of a neckline. And remember, I had talked about this as a possible little shoulder, head, and shoulder in here. So there's the possibility that we're breaking down out of this, and of course the move is not a huge measured move based on the distance here. It would project down into this range somewhere down here. Maybe we're going to go down and test the lower end of the channel, which God knows we haven't been at the lower end of the channel since June of last year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, this has been one of the stronger ones, and all of a sudden now is acting like one of the weaker indices. The New York Composite Index, again, sideways, just like the S&P, inside day. And then the Russell 2000 was weak, like I mentioned, with the NASDAQ, with this big sell-off here. We're getting the 10 breaking below the 20 here slightly. You can see the blue line below the blue-gray line. Also, this support line, when you drew it between these two low points in here, was at least broken intraday. It wasn't broken on a close, which I'd like to see the close. So a couple of indices weakening, and we're not seeing the Dow and the S&P roll over just yet. So let's take a look at some of the indicators. The short-term trading index really, again, is not giving us a whole lot of anything to go off of. It's starting to get this blue line down towards the extreme reading, but it's not there. The volatility index, VIX, has just dropped back down again. Yeah, it's as low as it was in February, but not nearly as low as it was in early January and in mid-November. The high-low index, this is in a short-term downtrend. Okay, we've got the 10 below the 21 on the high-low, net high-low. And again, we talked about this non-confirmation before, that we've seen on the indices. So this isn't looking very strong. And again, big up day, up 90 points, and you barely get a move in terms of the increase in terms of the net new highs versus new lows. So that's not super strong. Now I want to take a look at the ETFs, the semiconductor. I was looking at this before. Now again, the semiconductors continues to lead, which that's bullish. I mean, it's up here, it's trending, and it's not showing any sign of rolling over. And I happen to be going back and looking. If you go back to the 2007 top, if I could find it real quick. Here we go. Okay, so here's July 2007. If you remember the Dow Industrials, it hit this peak and then went to a new high in October of 2007. It was like October 15th or something. Went to a higher high. Well, you notice you got this non-confirmation by the semiconductors. Well, we're not even getting that right now. I mean, semiconductors are continuing to push higher. So that's just one more factor that we're looking at in trying to say, okay, what does this mean for the overall market? Home builders breaking down a little bit short term anyway. And now it's broken down before, but right now it's breaking down. We just have to wait and see. Does it continue to roll over? To me, rolling over is when you get the 21 below the 55 and you start to get both of those below the 200. When you get both those below this is the 233 actually. You get both of those rolling back and heading down, then you're going south. So right now we're just possibly putting in a top, but it's slowly rolling over if it is. And the last one, which I'm really intrigued about, is the XLF, the financial ETF. I talked about this top in here, and sure enough, we're starting to get this, okay? You went to a new 20-day high here, intraday, and got to close down below that point here, just like over here. And then look at, okay, so here's the close below that high, that peak. Here's the peak. And here's the close below that. Then you had two sideways type days. Well, we just got two sideways type days. So it's going to be interesting. Here's the third one that happened, and then it collapsed. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out over the rest of the week. Okay, tonight I'm going to look at three of the 3D printing stocks. And I know we talked about Stratasys on the weekend. Let's go ahead and take a look at the three big ones, three main ones, at least that I'm aware of. I know there's another one, the German stock, but I don't think the pricing on that stock is it's pretty high. I think it's down in the teens. But 3D systems, it's definitely in a downtrend here. I don't have a specific setup to play off of. Otherwise, I would have kind of issued something on the weekend. But it's definitely trending down. It looks like it's trying to break this trend line. It's below the 233 day. Now, the other thing that I notice about this also is it looks like it's completed 5 waves up. It looks to me like it's had a pretty big move. And this was a lower low than this low here. So this is the 0 point for me as far as what I'm measuring off of. And I look at, and we had this big wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and 5 waves up here on the 5th wave, which is why I think what we are in is some kind of corrective action. Now, there's no guarantee it doesn't get complex on you and starts bouncing around. But typically when they correct back down into the 4th wave, which is all the way down here into 30. So it'll be interesting to see, do we truly correct that low or not? Now, if this is a form of a head and shoulder, then this is a head. I mean, if this is a shoulder and this is a head and this is a right shoulder, then this is the kind of move that would take you down to that type of range. We just have to wait and see. Right now, all I can basically tell you is it's definitely in a trend line, downtrend. Downtrending action. Okay, Stratasys we talked about on the weekend. Again, it looks like to me like a symmetrical triangle in here. We broke down out of this. We bounced back up to the trend line first thing Monday morning, and that's when on my trade ideas I bought puts, and they've done fairly well. Actually, they were doing real well the same day yesterday, and then we got a little pause today. So it'll be interesting to see if we continue to get the action to the downside like I'm expecting. And the last one is X1. And X1 also, if you drew the trend line in here between these two low points, it smashed through those two low points. I'm expecting continued move to the downside. We got to watch for getting divergence, but this is really looks pretty negative to me. But if you start to get positive divergence on the indicators, you got to be careful. This could snap back on us. So we had one big move up, and it looks like it's in a complex corrective type mode, and it may have a little more to go. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night, and have a great Wednesday. This has been Joe for Beyond the Chart. Share the video, share the post.